Vehicle Code. April 8th, public hearing on Senate Bill 124, 208, 112, 113, 119, 211, and 214.
Joint Subcommittee on Motor Vehicle Code Revision come to order. Members who aren't here are excused. There are drinks and snacks. And we're going to have a hearing first on 119. Because there are people from out of town. And at least one of them is not going to be able to get back to his school board meeting tonight. Claudia, will you go through Senate Bill 119 for us?
Put out of order here.
Also, I have a copy of a letter from the Klamath Falls Superintendent of Schools. I don't know if other people have a copy of that, but we do have someone from that county signed up to testify.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill 119 was introduced by the Joint Interim Committee on the Revision of the Motor Vehicle Code. Current law allows school buses to operate with studded tires all year. This bill deletes the exemption to the prohibition against studded tires. School buses would then fall into the same time limit for studded tire use that's established for most other vehicles.
At the time that we were discussing this, I think the reason that we presented this, knowing that it would probably be sort of controversial, was because of the statistics that show not just the damage that studded tires do to the highways, but the fact that they take longer to stop on wet concrete. And so there was a safety consideration that was included. And I understand for some school districts it is a problem, and we'll be hearing from them. So why don't I call on Jack Spear and Ron Bryan and Fred Murphy, please, to come up together, who are the school, are you all school transportation people? Well, I know Jack is Department of Education. And they're bringing testimonies. What do you want to put?
Everybody there?
And we have a letter also from Mr. Ferguson.
That must be okay.
Okay?
Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Jack Spear. I'm the coordinator of Pupil Transportation Services for the Department of Education. Appreciate the opportunity to provide information which will be helpful to the committee during deliberations on Senate Bill 119. Provisions in this bill would eliminate the exemption in present law that allows schools to leave studded tires on school buses for the entire school year. The reason for requesting this exemption years ago was to relieve school districts that use buses only during the school year of the necessity of purchasing 2 sets of tires for each bus equipped with studs, and to allow the extra margin of safety if adverse driving conditions occur prior to November 1 or after April 30. In addition, schools are relieved of the expense incurred for mounting and dismounting tires twice each year and providing the space necessary for storing tires. Many district administrators and fleet supervisors feel studded tires are a district requirement to enhance school bus safety during icy road conditions, especially in areas that have hilly or mountainous terrain. To provide the committee with first-hand information on the use of studded tires on school buses throughout the state, we sent from our office 122 questionnaires to school districts and school bus contractors that we felt might encounter the slippery road conditions during their regular school year. But out of 122, we received 116 responses. A summary of this questionnaire is attached to this testimony, and the results of the survey indicate that a number of school bus fleet operators believe studs are necessary for safety reasons and feel repeal of the exemption would jeopardize student safety and require the purchase of 2 sets of tires for each bus utilizing studs. Several also expressed concern over the extra expense for changing tires twice each year and the provisions to store tires when not in use. I attached another letter to the back of the testimony from the Maupin Elementary School District, which I think was indicative of some of the letters that I did receive, speaking to the problems they have with early and late adverse weather conditions. We received all kinds of responses, and I think the summary of some of the comments that were listed on the survey form, I think, represent both sides of the comments from the districts and the contractors that did come back. I'm sorry that we don't have more to testify here this evening, but it so happens the second Monday of the month seems to be board meeting night, and I did get a call from a number of superintendents, mainly in the central and eastern part of the state, concerned about this bill. We do have representatives here both from the Klamath County and from Estacada school districts that I'm sure can add to what I've already said, and I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there questions for Jack? I would say your comments run the gamut of everything.
That's the way they came in, Madam Chair.
Yes, they do. No, they don't.
That's right.
Okay, well, if there aren't any questions for you, let's hear from Mr. Brian from Estacada. Your name's next on the... Or is that the way you want it?
That's fine.
Okay, however you want to do it. Estacada, go ahead.
I'm Ron Bryan, Transportation Supervisor, Estacada School District. We're only running studs on part of our buses. We feel that where we are, we put them on the routes where they're needed. Where we get the snow and the ice, we run about 28 miles up the Clackamas River every day. Plus we have one bus up there, and we stud both of those and try to run them year-round. They also happen to be buses that have a different kind of wheel on. If we had to change this, we'd have to go through a tire changing process. Storage becomes a problem, and of course additional costs. In this day of budget problems, we're having enough problems getting money to operate with what we have without adding expense to our budget.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bryan from Estacada? Okay, Mr. Murphy from the Klamath.
Yes, I'm Fred Murphy, Transportation Supervisor for Klamath County School District. We have one of the coldest counties in the state, I'm sure you'll all agree. Our winter started in October last year. We have 70 school buses, of which we stud all the tires, not the front tires, but the rear tires on all of the buses, and we run them year-round. We were trying to figure out what it would cost if we had to change them twice a year. To begin with, to buy tires and rims for 70 school buses, we're looking at a capital outlay of over $100,000, plus a building for storage during the off-season. Also, it would take more help to change them and replace them twice a year. We feel that Studs has done a great job for us. We rarely have to chain up when we're using the studs. Many of our bus routes go 100 miles a day, and if we had to chain up for 100 miles a day, you just never would get there because of the slower driving with chains on. And I realize that studs are hard on the pavement, but I also feel that it's a safety factor for the kids, and that's my big concern, is doing the job safely.
Yes, Representative Harper.
Well, I assume that the school districts are supported by the taxpayers of the state. And I also assume that the highways are repaired by tax dollars provided by the taxpayers of the state. So it seems that if studs were the highways, and it costs the school districts to buy 2 sets of tires, change them, Has anybody attempted to match the cost? Anybody come on there?
Madam Chair and Representative Harper, no, I haven't, because we haven't looked into these expenses. It would be hard to know, I suppose, what the damage would be caused from a school bus running that extra 65 to 70 days a year that, where it is not allowed now. I really don't know, even though I have heard testimony when we've had the bills before, like I think Senate Bill 641 will address it the other way around. But the testimony, I'm sure, will come up during that hearing.
I have tried to myself figure out how to address the cost. I know from the tests that depending on what kind of a road surface you're on, each pass of a studded tire on asphalt is maybe 150 to 200 times, and it depends on which kind of a stud you have, whether it's what they call the first generation or the second generation. We've never gotten to the third generation. Anyhow, somewhere on asphalt, I think between 150 to 200 times more wearing, and those are from actual tests on every kind of surface. And then on concrete, probably 70 to 100 times more. But I've not been able to get anybody to get much beyond that.
I guess then my next question, why do we address a problem in the name of saving money when we really don't know what's going to save us money or cost us money?
Madam Chair, Representative Harper, I think obviously our main concern always is safety of kids. That's number one. Speaking here, though, because of our concern that many of the superintendents raised, was obviously it does make a budgetary problem for them to as we heard in the other testimony here. But again, we're mainly interested in the safety. That's always number one.
Yeah, well, the safety factor and the longer time to stop was the main reason that the subcommittee did introduce the bill.
Madam Chair, I do know your concerns there, and we put that on the survey to see, and we did get a variety of results.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they felt it increased the stamping distance. There were 34 responses that felt they did. However, in reading through the responses, a lot of those were that didn't use them on their buses, but used them on their cars, and I certainly concur with you. On a car, they do. No doubt about it. I've had the experience myself.
Representative Lindquist.
I guess I'm going to ask Mr. Bryan because I'm a little familiar with Estacada, and I know that you've had quite a few days this year that the schools have been closed, and maybe this has been kind of an extraordinary year. But I guess my question is, if in fact, does the road conditions add to the decision, or is that a factor in the decision of whether to keep the schools open or closed? And would this impact, just the fact that you use studded tires, kind of put a favorable point up there?
I believe it does affect our decision some. Generally, though, in our area, most school closures is because of snow depth.
Which studded tires really are not a
really not, no.
on.
The big thing with us is running that Clackamas River, and we go up there in the morning before the sand trucks leave town, and you get a lot of ice and stuff, and we just feel that it's just really a lot safer to run there.
Thank you.
Most of the times that you're talking about between the regular dates for the usage of the studded tire.
I believe up to Clackamas River, you can get frost just about any time and ice any time of the year. We had some, this year we had chains on one bus in October, but we had a early...
Yeah, we had that early
snow, yes.
Snowfall everywhere. As a matter of fact, I believe the commission opened the season early for everyone at that time.
They did.
I saw Senator Bright.
Well, Senator Simmons, I think, was first.
Oh.
Well, I apologize for being late, Madam Chair, but I was in another committee, but...
I was late, too.
How far up to Clackamas do you go? Do you go as far as Riverfolk?
Yes, we go just past Ripplebrook. Well, we were going clear what was, used to be called Oak Grove. Now we're going to Ripplebrook housing.
Senator Fry?
Well, I was just going to comment how very helpful to me it was that this survey was taken. I just was really impressed. I think it tells me a whole lot that a bunch of witnesses could spend all evening telling us about, and it's succinct and to the point. Did you want to do something with this today, Madam Chair?
I don't know. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Well, I'm inclined to move the table bill.
I thought that might be the case.
Certainly support that motion.
If that's what the committee wants to do, that's, I suppose, what the committee will do. I'm not going to stop. We'll have a hearing on the other ones in the Senate, Transportation Committee. Is there any more discussion that anybody wants to do?
Well, just to add to the arguments against, thank you, Madam Chair. There isn't anyone here from east of the mountains, and I have to be from over there, and I'm not sure that our school district runs solar tires year-round, but I can testify as to kind of a fall we had, for example, last year. We had lots of rain, and then in mid-October we had temperatures as low as 14 above. And when you have rain and wet ground and those kind of temperatures, you get frosty roads. And that late in the year, many of our country roads are through heavy cuts and along hillsides in the canyons. They don't thaw out. The frost is there all day long. And stud tires are important to us.
Well, you're correct, Representative Harper, on that kind of a situation. That is the one instance where they are more effective. Is there any more discussion? Any more witnesses? If not, Senator Fry moves to table, and that's non-debatable, so you have to say it now. Moves to recommend that Senate Bill 119 be, that the recommendation go to the full committee that Senate Bill 119 be tabled.
That makes it debatable, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does.
I'm not going to debate it.
I don't debate it either.
Let's just call the roll.
Representative Harper?
Aye.
Representative Lindquist?
Aye.
Senator Simmons?
Aye.
Senator Fry?
Aye.
Representative Banzer? Aye. Senator Cease?
No. That recommendation will go to the full committee. Claudia, what do we need? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Home. What do you want to do next, Claudia?
Madam Chair, Senate Bill 124 was heard on last Monday night and had some problems, and there were people here to talk about it.
Jack, would you send Bronner and the bank back in?
Maybe they're still negotiating. I'm not sure.
Are you ready?
You might want to go with them next.
Should we take 124 next, or are you still talking? Doesn't sound too good. Does everybody want to come up that wants to talk on Senate Bill 124? Okay, let's go ahead with the hearing, a continued hearing on Senate Bill 124. Senator Simmons had raised some questions, and so I asked Mr. Bonner if he would come in and talk to us about the situation. And so Frank, why don't you go ahead?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Frank Bronner with the Oregon Bankers Association. With me is Rod Kitchen, Consumer Loan Officer with Western Security Bank here in Salem. Our concern with Senate Bill 124 begins from the realization that the department has been titling vehicles that we really didn't understand they were titling. But we have gone to school and now find out their concerns, and
well, I think it's probably the public's concern.
That's correct.
Who's been
That's
asking
correct.
to have this done.
And when any lender perfects a security interest in a non-titled vehicle, of course that is filed with the UCC1 form with the Secretary of State's office. Our concern is to be able to look at the vehicle and know that there's either a title or there isn't a title, knowing which way, in other words, on the titled vehicle, we have perfected our security interest by signing on the title, and we are shown as the legal owner on that title. And there is, in normal circumstances, no filing, no perfection of the security interest of the Secretary of State's office. Well, we've had some conversations, and we understand that light trailers, trail bikes, three-wheelers are basically the problem. We do think that Senate Bill 124, where there would be the promulgation of rules so that we would have some knowledge of what DMV was doing, would be of assistance. On a new vehicle, we really don't have a problem because they require, just as they do on an automobile, the MSO, the manufacturer's certificate of origin. So they would issue a title knowing full well that there was a legal owner or that there wasn't at that point in time. But we wouldn't know the next time that that vehicle would become security, whether to ask if there's a title or not. I'm also told by the department we're part of the problem, that some of our lenders are asking that certain vehicles be titled before they make the loan. So I must confess to you that we probably... On Section 5, on page 2, it strikes us as...
Now, let me ask you a question, Frank. Some of the lenders are asking for titles on that particular kind of a vehicle, so we're still talking generally about that?
Apparently trail bikes, particularly, were in the departments here, but I'm told that occasionally a consumer will come in and say, I must get a title for this trail bike before I can borrow the money to buy it, or to get a loan on. And so apparently we're part of the problem. As to be expected. On line 14 and 15, where it says vehicles exempted by this section from the requirements to be titled are not prohibited from being titled if the rules are promulgated. I'm wondering if that couldn't somehow be tightened to address the problems that the consumers have brought to the department. The other concern that we have is we're wondering on those, when those rules are promulgated by the department, and let's take trail bikes, if it says that trail bikes may be titled, then we as lenders will begin making a search at the Department of Motor Vehicles and also searching at the Secretary of State's office, doing both searches to ensure that the title or that the vehicle is cleared so that we can make the loan on it. I guess I'm a little concerned about what happens to private individuals in those transactions, and there are a number of those. Will they be able to search both places and know that they need to search both places to protect themselves? That's a concern.
Why?
Well, if you were operating on a title, and the title showed that it was free and clear, when in fact there was an encumbrance that had been perfected at the Secretary of State's office, you could wake up and find that you were not in the priority position on that vehicle, be it a light trailer or be it a trail bike, or be it farm machinery that was titled and or was not titled and all of a sudden becomes titled.
Is that another kind of thing that is addressed with this? Farm machinery? One of the individuals
Well,
said
it
they don't have
could be, if you look at the line 14 and 15, the new language, which says that Section 2 can be operational on that entire list, line 33 talks about implements of husbandry. What we were suggesting is, if the department would consider limiting their ability to write rules to where the need is.
Oh, I see what you mean by that.
And if we had those rules promulgated, then we'd know how to respond. And we'd know in those instances that we'd have to search both places. That some light trailers would be titled and some would not. And some trail bikes would be titled and some would not. But we would also know that well-drilling machinery and so forth would never have a title. I guess in the perfect world, Madam Chair, we'd like to know by looking at the vehicle whether there's a title, whether to look for a title or whether to look for the UCC.
Madam Chair.
Senator Simmons?
I think this goes beyond the people who are in the financing business too, to the consumer
That's what he said.
who goes out to buy a trail bike, and the person gives him a title to it, and fine, I own the bike, and then along comes somebody and says, hey, but I've got a lien on it, and takes it away from him. So that's, it's not the big octopus, well-heeled bankers that we're talking about. It's the poor John Doe that goes out and buys a motorcycle and finds he doesn't own it.
And we could be the octopus to go to that consumer and say, wait a minute, we've got legal rights to that.
Representative Lindquist?
I guess I don't agree with the I don't disagree with the premise both of you are going on, but how is the consumer going to know that he's supposed to look in both places? A financial institution, does that regularly, and they're going to know in certain instances they should go to both Secretary of State and Title. But how's the consumer going to know that?
Well, Representative Lindquist, if you asked me 24 hours a day where you would search for a trail bike, I would have said Secretary of State. I didn't know that
24
any of
hours
them,
ago.
that any of them were titled, and I find that they are. A light trailer, I understand the 1,800 pounds. In my way of thinking, they were either titled or weren't titled, and I was able to tell by looking at the vehicle. So I guess the consumer would have the same kind of concerns that we would have. And Mr. Kitchen deals in it daily, and I just advised him a half an hour ago that some of his security was also titled.
Representative Lindquist, are you through?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Senator Fry had a question, and then Representative Vance.
Well, I suppose my question is that if a vehicle has a license plate, then the record of any security interest would be in the motor vehicle division. Is that correct?
These are vehicles that are off-road without plates.
All right. So the problem would be, we could say that if it's got a license, you know to look in the motor vehicles division. If it doesn't, you'd look over to Secretary of State. But the problem is it might have had a license and it's been taken off. Is that where the problem comes in?
Well, or it could be that the vehicle began its life by being perfected at the Secretary of State's office, and the consumer comes in to DMV and says, I need a title, I'm going to California in the case of a light trailer. I understand those concerns. And they receive a title, and it shows no legal owner. Now, I also understand that DMV requires an affidavit saying that there is no legal owner, but nonetheless, they don't search with UCC to find out if there is a lien, and so the consumer has a title which shows no legal owner, and that can certainly be negotiated.
Well, what if the law required that every motor vehicle except farm machinery had to be, a security interest had to be recorded with the motor vehicles division? And certainly you could tell from looking at a piece of machinery whether it was a piece of farm machinery or not. Is that an approach?
You mean instead of in the Secretary of State's office?
Yes. Everything except, whatever you want to say except for, and I'm thinking of farm machinery because it's identifiable, but everything, off-road vehicles and trailers and so forth would be in the motor vehicle division. Is that cumbersome or impossible or?
The legislature can do
impossible things.
many things.
Complicated things. Palpable.
And I guess I would like us to try to figure out a way to address this, because I think it's something that looks like it needs to be addressed. But I don't know what the right answer is. That's Representative Vance, is that what you were going to ask?
Do you have a suggestion?
Well,
Do we need to let you talk longer in the hall, or can you just sort of have a nice discussion here?
Well, I wish I'd have talked longer in the hall a week ago. I feel embarrassed that it would seem to me that the consumers have come to the department with a problem, and I didn't realize it wasn't. I would think that it would be good public policy to limit the amount, the scope
Of the kind of vehicle.
of the kind of vehicle. Regulated lenders would then know to check both places. We don't respond to the problem that Representative Lindquist brings. I guess that we would come down on the side of titling everything that has a motor on it, but I don't think the Department of Motor Vehicles, that includes farm machinery. A motorized tractor can be titled or it cannot be. We have that problem today, but we know about it and we check both places. It is easier to check with the Department of Motor Vehicles to ascertain whether there's a legal owner or not because their records are computerized and they got the copy of the title. When you're dealing without a title, you're dealing with a description of the vehicle and you're probably dealing with a lot of other collateral, 1,000 head of this and so forth, and the Secretary of State's office cannot search with their computer system to find that out.
Senator Sam, will you hear Representative Banzer? You don't have a suggestion, other than titling everything that moves.
Including 1,000 head of cattle.
No, I didn't want to title those.
But they're branded. Sorry.
Well, Representative Banzer, I understand the necessity of the light trailer thing. I've had that explained to me, and I think that it makes sense to title those. I guess we prefer that they all be titled. But I suppose there are consumers who are going to say, look, I'm never going to take this out of Oregon. Why do I have to go to the expense? And we are talking about consumers' expenses. So I guess we would be content if you could limit the scope of the rulemaking authority of the department to the areas where there are consumer concerns.
Oh. Are there any questions for Joanne?
Madam Chair,
Representative Banzer.
Joanne, explain to me the paragraph here where you said the bill would subject all these vehicles to vehicle identification number inspection. Now, this is different from, as I understand it, cars are imported and we buy them through a U.S. dealer. As an individual, I can also buy a car from a foreign country that may or may not meet certain U.S. standards.
Correct.
Now, if I do that, choose the latter, then currently what do I have to do to register the car?
Basically, you just have to provide the ownership documents. If that car was registered in Europe, you would be subject to the vehicle identification number inspection. If it was not previously registered, you would not be. One of the reasons that we are requesting the inspection process is because these vehicles do not have the normal 17-character VIN number on them that U.S. cars have, and that stolen vehicles are a problem, which was the purpose of the VIN inspection to begin with, was to help resolve problems with stolen vehicles. And so many of these gray market vehicles are falling into that classification, so we feel the inspection is important.
I'm not sure I understand. If they've been registered in another country, then you want to inspect them to look at their registration number?
Madam Chair, Representative Banzer, under current Oregon law, any vehicle that has previously been registered or titled in another jurisdiction is subject to a vehicle inspection for the identification number. This identification number check, then after being verified, is run against the National Crime Information Center to determine whether that vehicle in fact has been stolen. Now, some of these vehicles in question would already fall under that statute because they have been previously registered in another jurisdiction, but not all of them. And what this change here would say, regardless if these vehicles have been registered, if it is a gray market vehicle that wasn't originally manufactured to U.S. standards, that we will inspect the vehicle for the identification number.
Only for the identification number?
Correct.
And not to determine if it meets certain standards or...
Madam Chair, Representative Banzer, correct. Oregon does not currently have any kind of safety inspection that is tied to the registration process. We have emission inspection that the
But you don't do that.
No, DEQ does that in the Portland area. And we aren't proposing that with this bill that we do that. That would be a major, change in what we were doing if we were to get into that area.
Madam Chair,
Senator Simmons?
this may have been covered, but if you import a vehicle, the U.S. Customs requires certain documentation and inspection for one thing, that it complies with U.S. pollution controls, and another, that there is an ownership question. Would this be duplicating what the federal government does in imported cars?
Madam Chair, Senator Simmons, basically what we're asking for here is the proof that, in fact, the federal government has issued this and said this is okay. These vehicles are allowed to be imported into the U.S., although we understand that there has been a proposal for changing the federal law that would not even allow them to be brought in. But they are allowed to be brought in on the condition that they be modified. And what's happening is that they're not being modified, and they're being sold to unsuspecting buyers, and their value isn't as great as one that has been made up to U.S. standards. Any number of problems associated with it. And all this is really doing is saying that before we issue title, we need something from the federal government that has indicated that this vehicle, in fact, has been brought into compliance.
But if you buy a car, say you buy a Mercedes from the local Mercedes dealer, and you pick it up in Europe, drive it a while and bring it over, then that presumably is a car that's built to American import standards. And there should be no trouble there then, should there? Or do you?
Madam Chair, Senator Simmons, if it's built to U.S. standards, it wouldn't fall under this program, and there really shouldn't be a problem with it. They're generally readily discernible. They have completely different vehicle identification numbers, and the papers that they come in with are not your standard document or statement of origin that you would get, for example, from your Mercedes dealer.
Representative Banzer?
I'm concerned, Joan. I thought that I had asked the question if you would be looking at these cars only to see if they had a vehicle identification number. And I thought you said yes, but in fact you would also be looking for whether or not it complies with federal standards.
Madam Chair, Representative Banzer, that would not be part of the inspection process. That would be part of the documentation that they would submit to us to show that they had in fact done so.
All right, then I asked my question improperly. Madam Chair, I don't know what your plans are for tonight on this, but I would like to at least ask for another week's time. I'd like to send a copy of your statement to some people that deal with alphas. I have heard for the last year and a half the problems that they've had with trying to modify imported alphas to meet standards, and then we change our rules a year later. And I'll give you an example. There was a headlight cover that was standard equipment on an alpha, was not allowed to be imported into the U.S., and now it's allowed to be imported. It's actually given me, shed some light on it from a totally different perspective on the impact of these kinds of laws. I'd like to have a chance just to check with somebody who would have to deal with this kind of law to see what kind of impact they would feel that it would have, if that would be appropriate.
I don't have a problem with that. We do have someone else here tonight who wants to testify on the bill. Representative Lindquist?
Joanne, in reading through your testimony, you talk about, and one thing that I guess seems a little odd is one of the reasons that you would suggest that you wouldn't issue a title is if a car didn't have a factory warranty. And I guess maybe I question why.
Madam Chair, Representative Lindquist, the paragraph that you refer to is just basically summarizing a number of the different problems that there are with gray market vehicles. We're not attempting to deal with those problems, and the fact that there isn't a factory warranty isn't the reason why we don't want to issue a title. We're basically looking at the safety and emissions standards, which we have certain responsibilities in other areas to deal with, but which there is no tie into the registration program.
Well, I guess that's why that kind of jumped out at me, because I guess if I were to buy one of these cars and it made everything else, but it didn't have a factory warranty, would I get a title?
Madam Chair, if it was brought up to U.S. standards, yes, you'd get a title.
Okay.
That wouldn't have any...
Okay, so the factory warranty is just one additional thing that might crop up. could not be the only reason for not getting a title.
Madam Chair, Representative Lindquist, we wouldn't be looking at the fact that it wouldn't have a factory warranty. We would be looking at whether it met U.S. standards and, of course, with the VIN, whether it was a stolen vehicle or was properly being registered.
Did you want to ask
But, John, you have it in your testimony.
Representative Banzer?
Madam Chair?
She's referring to your second paragraph.
Okay, I said there are a number of issues surrounding gray market vehicles, and basically, we're not trying to address all of them. There may be testimony from other parties that would deal with those types of things, but I wanted you to be aware that the issue that we're dealing with is not the only issue. There is, I believe, some proposed federal legislation that would prohibit the importing of these vehicles. You mentioned the headlight thing, which seems like a minor safety situation, but we've also heard tales of where some of the vehicles are substantially lacking in what would be normally required in U.S. cars. And the insurance industries and the banking industries, as we understand, are concerned about these cars as well because of that, and the fact that, you know, you could have basically two Mercedes or whatever, and one would be substantially safer than the other one. I was not trying to imply in here that we would be tackling or dealing with all of these issues by prohibiting the registration. We're basically looking at ensuring that they've been brought up to standards and to the degree we can that they're not stolen.
Okay. Further questions for Joanne?
Thank you very much.
Rich Keister.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rich Keister, and I represent the Oregon Auto Dealers Association. We're the franchised automobile and truck dealers in the state. And I'm here tonight to support this bill and to share with you a little more information, perhaps, regarding the scope of the problem. Your assistant is handing out some material right now that came from our national association in January of this year. And in there, it mentions the fact that in 1980, there were some 1,500 so-called gray cars in the United States, and by 1984, there's some 40,000. California, is my understanding, California has recently strengthened their laws substantially, and there is a fear among some of the dealers in this state, and they are primarily those expensive, not high volume sellers, but expensive vehicles, that we will get the overflow from California. The ones that they can't get in down there, we will end up with. The vehicles we're talking about primarily are the Alphas, BMWs, Ferraris, Jaguars, Maseratis, Mercedes, Porsche, Rolls. Another article which I had given to Claudia earlier, on some federal investigators, they found that the customs agents do not necessarily inspect each and every one of these vehicles. They rely on certifications. And in some investigations, my understanding, they've gone into these places that were bringing the vehicles up to standards and found files of Polaroid snapshots purportedly to prove that they had made the modifications. But they just have a file after file of photographs, so you could bring your Maserati in that didn't meet the federal standards, and they would provide you with the photographs and all the documentation for customs, and now you can bring that in and sell it as a new car. Some of the things that are happening with these vehicles, and I think that on page 2, starting on page 2 of the information that I gave you, they list some of the percentages of the 1/3, for instance, of the gasoline-powered cars did not have catalytic converters. Only 5% of the cars have all the items on the emissions checklist. Now, these are the ones that have presumably been certified by customers. You talk about safety items. They're saying only 4 cars of the one surveyed, or 1%, have all the safety items. Headlights and bumpers, 60% and 82% respectively did not comply. So there's some real serious problems I think you can see with safety equipment besides the emissions. And then, of course, these people that buy one of these vehicles and think it's a brand new car do not get a warranty, and that may go to one of the questions of, I believe, Representative Banzer. And then there's no technicians, the parts availability is not there. People aren't trained to work on these cars that were really built for another country's standard.
Question? Representative Banzer?
Which I don't have any problem, Madam Chair, I don't have any problem with the types of things you're talking about. My only concern is that we not penalize the sports car buff who, as a hobby for racing purposes, wants to be able to take advantage of a car directly from the country without, that may or may not have some of these things on it. And I think that's a legitimate sport, and I just want to make sure those people are protected and able to pursue their avocation or vocation.
Representative Banzer, we certainly would have no problem with that either, and I'm curious, I guess, in my mind as to whether you're speaking of sports cars that are driven on the highways or ones that are raced on tracks.
I don't think you can race them on the track if you can't title them.
I don't know the answer to that.
You can race them on the track without titling them because they're not on the road.
Haul them on a trailer.
You can carry them on
But
another
you can
vehicle.
request a title.
But do you do it through the... Well, I really don't know if you can continue to do that after all of this. I mean, or if the division should issue any more without the other bill. I mean, I'm serious. I think that they should not, Benita, unless it switches in at the time that they're titling it.
Madam Chair, that is indeed one of the things that we confessed during the interim, that on a number of these issues, when they surfaced, on that bill specifically, on the non-registered title, or I would conclude that if the legislature decides no, that we've got to back out of all of those vehicles that we've got out there with titles that are not required to be titled.
Or that you're not allowed to title.
That we're not allowed to title. I might also mention one other thing about this particular bill. Even the Mercedes, one of the major manufacturers of these vehicles, Mercedes-Benz, has gone to the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and because of the terrible problems that they're having, said they want to cooperate in any way they can, because one of the things that's happening is that the second owner or the third owner gets one of these, not knowing about the problems, then goes to their franchise dealer and says, we want it fixed, and they can't do it. They can't fix it, and that doesn't...
Because they don't have anyone who knows how to
or
do
the
that
parts
kind of...
aren't there, or,
They
and
don't
so
have the parts.
that's not good PR from their standpoint either.
Sure. Well, it's not good consumer situation, to say the least.
I might add...
I mean, not
Anybody
picking
can
up
afford a
dealers, you
Mercedes,
understand,
isn't normal.
consumers, but for everybody. Senator Simmons?
Well, I'm just saying that anybody who buys a Mercedes isn't a normal consumer.
I object.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just got rid of one.
And I technically got rid of them. My son's got 2 of them, but I don't think that's normal.
I would just point...
A different kind of a foreign car. Rich?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I just would point out that on the last page, I believe, the information I handed to you is highlighted the Florida statute, which, at least when I received this information, was the only state with a good, strong law, and that language is the language that some members of my association would prefer to see in
in the bill, as well as, if I may speak just for a moment for Jim Austin from the Motor Vehicle Manufacturers Association, he also has suggested that little stronger language be inserted there. I don't know if that would address Representative Banzer's question and problem, quite frankly, at all.
Actually, go ahead. Actually, I thought that they did ship them to Florida, then get them from Florida, so I thought they got most of the outfit. But I guess my question is, why is that language, well, to begin with, I don't know exactly what the division is what all the division is thinking about, really, say that. It's whatever you determine to be appropriate, but then isn't there a problem that, who testified to this problem, you or the Motor Vehicles Division, some sort of proof that's been certified to the Customs Service as the Customs Service is getting fake proof? So that statute doesn't solve your problem.
Well, I think perhaps, Madam Chair, if I may, I'm a little concerned about line 28, 27 and 28 of the bill.
You're talking about the Oregon bill.
The Oregon bill.
Page 2. Which page?
Page 1.
Page 1, yes, okay.
It does, page 1. Because it would seem that the possibilities are that the division may require the customs documentation, which were in fact falsified. And if I read the Florida language correctly, that seems to say that it has to be manufactured in accordance with the United States Clean Air Act and the United States Motor Vehicle Safety Act. And that then goes further to say it could not be registered entitled as a new motor vehicle. And I would presume that some of those sports cars, Representative Banzer, would be coming in brand new. And you wouldn't want to deny that, I'm sure, but...
I see what you...
Madam Chair, there's no
Senator Simmons?
distinction between a used or a new vehicle and a title now, is there?
I guess there is.
Maybe after we have odometer readings?
Perhaps. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Representative Lindquist.
Richard, I don't read it the same way you do. I read it more like Senator
not.
C's. Before the vehicle that's not been manufactured with the Clean Air Act, they merely have to produce documents that show they're certified by Customs Service or the Department of Transportation, or EPA, or which. And I guess maybe I tend to agree that if in fact Customs is certifying cars that they're not really getting the accurate information on, it doesn't solve the problem.
Perhaps upon rereading that, Representative Lindquist, perhaps I would agree with you too.
More questions? Representative Banzer. One specific question. Obviously, I'm trying to embarrass myself. Is it true that halogen lights were not, up until recently, were illegal, and they're now legal?
Yes.
Why?
I think I can say yes to that and be accurate because I was here when the bill passed.
Wouldn't that be an example of, didn't European cars have halogen lights on them, and so then they would have been illegal here, they would have had to been modified? Or is that how they... Benita?
Madam Chair, for two kinds
Senator
of...
Simmons?
Maybe that's what Benita's going to say.
Madam Chair, halogen headlights, and Representative Banzer, were legal in Oregon before they were legal in many other parts of the country, because Oregon passed a law that allowed us to approve headlights that met the Canadian Standards Association, which were quartz halogen headlights, and we had not a few friendly discussions with the U.S. Department of Transportation because we were...
Did you have not a few not friendly, or maybe friendly?
Well, they were not terribly thrilled about the Oregon law, and then, of course, they subsequently came around and to quartz halogen lights, but it got into the dispute over sealed beam, and there were a few manufacturers' disputes going on. It was not just a clean, straightforward issue that related to what are good headlights.
Madam Chair, aren't there still the two kinds, the sealed beam, which manufacturers are putting out now as standard equipment, or as maybe optional equipment, and then the one with the the bulb inside and the shield, are both kinds legal now?
It's my understanding that the Federal National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has now blessed all of those lights.
Representative Lindbergh?
My first ones were that way.
Further? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now, we're going to bring this one back next Monday. Now, I got to warn everybody, we were trying to have next Monday be the last meeting of the subcommittee because we had hoped to have everything out and over to the House.
I can suggest a way.
Suggest a way. What do we need to take next, Claudia? 208, Dennis Rice. I should have just left your hands. 208. Claudia says that 208 is a warm, fuzzy bill. Dennis, is this a warm, fuzzy bill?
Madam Chair, this is a warm, fuzzy bill.
Okay. Why does this look familiar? Oh, okay. Go ahead. Claudia.
Before Dennis before Dennis starts, I was going to say his own name, you may want to look at the bill in your bill book. There's a fiscal impact statement in your bill book. And there are some amendments that have been submitted by the division. That's also there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting. In this committee, I have a book, and I'm looking at 208. I hope everybody else is not as slow as I am. Okay. Go ahead, Dennis.
Madam Chair, I'm Dennis Rice from Motor Vehicles Division. Senate Bill 208 is the product of two separate concepts dealing with the waiver of driver licensing fees in certain limited conditions. It provides the division with the authority to establish by rule some circumstances when two different fees that we presently collect may be waived. And these fees are the extra $1 that we collect at renewal time when a person who is eligible to renew by mail elects not to and goes into a field office. And also the $10 duplicate fee that we charge. Okay, the division shows some license restrictions on the back of a license, and we do that by a little sticker that we attach to the back of the license. And these include restrictions that are most often imposed because of physical disabilities of the licensee or because of some driving limitations. And to issue the renew by mail sticker or the address change sticker to these people would result in that restriction sticker being covered up. Accordingly, we don't allow those people to renew by mail, nor do we allow them to change their address by mail and receive a sticker. Therefore, they either have to go in and pay the extra $1 if they're renewing their license, or pay a $10 duplicate fee if they want to get a duplicate license. And we believe this is unfair to impose that fee on the licensee because of our system and through no fault of their own because it may be a physical limitation. Okay, what brought this problem to our attention, and I'll give you an example. A entire family moved, and the entire family sent in their address change notices to us through the mail. We sent every member of the family back an address change sticker at no fee, except for the daughter who had a number 9 restriction on her license because of a physical limitation, and she was required to go to a field office to get her address changed, and according to statute we had to charge her $10, which we did. Okay. Another situation is a person who's renewing their license, and on the renewal notice they indicate they've had a change in their physical condition, perhaps eyesight, which would require a new restriction added to their license. We return these to the people and direct them to go to a field office so we can check their vision or add any necessary restrictions. And we charge them $1. Okay. In the duplicate license scenario described, we subsequently refunded the young ladies $10, and in fact have since discontinued charging the $10 fee in those situations. Senate Bill 208 will give us the authority to do what we are now doing. Okay. And then we've also submitted some amendments on this bill to delete the references to identification card as the situations that exist with a driver's license don't exist with the ID cards.
It is a warm, fuzzy bill, isn't it? Are there questions for Dennis?
Ways and Means won't like it. Look at all the money it cuts out.
Well, over 22,000 a year. Representative Lindquist?
The scenario that was outlined actually was a constituent of mine.
Oh.
And I'd have to say that what they haven't included in here is the cost of having the head of the Gladstone Field Office Motor Vehicle Division going down and spending several hours trying to explain this in the ladies' kitchen. And so I was very pleased that they agreed to refund the money, and I really think the bill is necessary.
Representative Lindquist recommends that we recommend this bill to the full committee with a do-pass recommendation. Is there any discussion on that suggestion?
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, we do have some minutes. Representative Harper.
Well, I wanted to make a comment. I have had only one person, I guess, talk to me about this bill, or not this bill, but the provisions that are there, the additional $1, and it would happen to be a lady, and she just about took the top of my head off because she liked to go to the motor vehicle department and get her renewals and so forth, and she severely objected to paying the extra $1. And
Okay.
so I don't know that this bill will help her one little bit, because I don't think she fit any of the specifications here. But I guess I'll refer the lady to Dennis the next time.
Okay. There are some proposed amendments that need to be run through legislative council on the way and have prepared for the full committee. Is there any objection to the recommendation that it go not? Okay, next.